Hello, students. After receiving a lot of your drafts and uh, going through our virtual class time, I wanted to create this video so that I could create some clarity around what your settings should look like for your narrative draft one. So, for the assignment, the entire narrative is about recalling a single memory and then writing details and explaining those details through the plot of your narrative. And so, what that means is as we go along, we're going to continue to build the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. So, we're focusing first of all on the exposition. So, one of those elements in the exposition is setting. And so, I wanted to create this template for you to have the opportunity to go through and recall that memory in terms of the setting. So here's how I'm going to model this for you. So what I did is I took my lead sentence all the way back from the Jamboard that you created in 5.3, and I just copied and pasted that onto here so that I know that's my very first sentence for my entire narrative. That's where I started. That's where everything in terms of our brainstorming began. So I just copied and pasted it. If you'd like to do that on your template, you're welcome to as well, just so you can keep that in mind. So, of course, you have to have that assignment completed by the time you start writing about your setting. So, my setting, we're going to follow this process in order to simplify this procedure. So, it's going to be name it, claim it, and explain it. So, in my example, my setting is going to be the middle school or my middle school drama room. So, I have to name it. So, I'm going to abbreviate some things just for the sake of time. Okay, so from there I move upward. Where was this? So it's inside. Is it inside or outside? Well, mine took place inside, so that's going to lead to a lot of the clarity that I'm going to be able to provide my reader when I go through and describe my setting. So I move to the right. What time of day was it? Well, it was morning. And if I want to be specific, it was 6:30 in the morning. What time of year? It was the end of summer. And then what month was it? It was August. Of course, all of these are details that I'm having to go back into time in my memory. Some of these prompts help jog my memory. And so that's why I wanted to create this for you because some of us got stuck on that, like going back in time in our mind and what that looked like. And so I wanted to give you a tool to help you with that. So from there, we're going to go ahead and describe the same event the same memory using your five senses. And so you'll see I give you a word bank here. You'll also find this in the virtual class resources that we practiced with this week. So the first one or the pattern that we're going to follow is an adjective and a noun. So the adjective comes from the five senses word list, and then the noun is going to come from your memory. So for example, there has to be one of each. So one from the sight column, one from the smell column, one from the hearing column, one from the taste column, and one from the touch. And you can have the opportunity to write a full sentence here. That would be a great shortcut to use because you're going to eventually turn this into a paragraph, or you could just name it as a noun and an adjective. So it's up to how your brain processes. Some people process in a list, some people process in sentences. So I'm going to process this in terms of a list just for the sake of time and opportunity for you to go back through this video and start and pause using your own way of thinking. I'll do one of each. So the first one, sight. If I think back to my memory, I have all this entire, I'm going to use this word bank that's here, and I'm going to use sight first. So it was bright. So what was bright? Is that the question I asked myself? Because I got to find a noun. So the bright lights. in the drama room, or choir room. And these details are going to help my reader to really connect and also get a great visual and enjoy the same experience that I experienced during my narrative or during this memory of my life. So that I'm going to move to smell. I see the word fresh and the floors. So the smell that I remember was fresh wax on the floors. The next one is hearing. It was noisy. People were filtering in, despite it being 6:30 in the morning. Students, of course, were uh, filtering in and talking. So it was noisy from side conversations. And this is my memory that's over there in the pink. So I'm constantly thinking and rethinking my same topic, which is the memory that I'm going to be writing my narrative about. The next one is taste. Sugary, sweet, delicious, spicy. This one's a little tough for me because I wasn't eating anything at the time. However, if I look back at my sticky note, I'm writing about when I auditioned and the moment that I auditioned for the school play. And I remember the I see the word right here where it says sugary. The sugary. I remember I had what I had for breakfast that morning. It was the same thing I had for breakfast all growing up through middle school, and it was Fruit Loops. And so I remember the sugary, sweet taste of Fruit Loops. Now you're going to see when I start drafting how I'm going to pull that in, especially when it connects to my emotions and the way that I was feeling during that audition. That's what's going to end up being really unique in this big, bold blue space that I'm going to get the choice to write about a little bit later as I pull along the plot. The next one would be touch. I'm writing about when I auditioned, and so the I remember the touch of my own skin was really cold because I was so nervous. So I'm going to add that. Um, in my list, I have a few words that will probably be able to connect with better. Dry. So I'm going to use. I could use either one, the one that I just verbalized, but I'm going to type the one that I'm going to use from that list instead. So I remember the the dryness in my mouth as I read the script. Remember, I'm constantly going back to that pink sticky note or the sticky note that you created during your Jamboard for your topic. That way I know I'm always within my topic and I'm sticking to my topic, so I'm staying focused in my writing. So, two important items that were in that space. If I think back to the setting where we were, there were risers. The risers were at the back of the room, and you can make these circles as big as you need them. Don't feel bound uh, by the same space that I have provided you. This is your tool. This is your thinking tool for you to use. And then the second artifact, something that was important, was in my space and in my story that I think is really important was the scripts. The scripts were marked and pages were highlighted for each role. And that's going to play an important part once I start drafting, which is the second part of this video. That's going to help me pull along the plot, but also give the details and explanation to my reader. Remember, our pattern is name it, claim it, explain it. Those are definitely going to help me explain some of those details. And now this part, the dark blue part, is where I get to pull in some of my subordinating conjunctions. This is going to give me the plot and also the transition to the characterization, which is we're going to work on this coming week in the module and in virtual class. With that, I'm going to pull one of these subordinating conjunctions as the first word of my sentence. So I'm going to really focus on cause and effect for my plot. You choose any one of those different types of subordinating conjunctions. Here's how I came up with that. I came up with the fact that I'm going to use cause and effect because my climax, me getting the part in my narrative is the most important part. The climax for me is cause and effect. Because I got the part, the effect was I became more confident. That's also detailed that 5.2 assignment. So for me, I'm going to use cause and effect. And so I'm going to start my sentence with in order to. Okay, my sentence is in order to break through the rest of the actors auditioning, comma, I knew I had to stand out. I relied on doing voice impressions to do it. Okay, that blue circle is really important to the plot. That's going to lead my reader into my rising action. And so, uh, in my rising action, which is what we're going to work on in class altogether, you'll be choosing your rising action and how it connects to your character, your characterization, this week during class. Okay, so let's go ahead and review this. Let's go ahead and review this graphic organizer. So first thing you do is name your setting. From there, you ask yourself the question, where is the narrator? Where are you? Inside or outside? From there, you go over here to time and time of day, and then you fill in each one of these, all three of those that are listed. After that, you write either an adjective and noun clause right here in each one of these for every single one of those five senses. After that, two artifacts, two important items that were in that space. And then lastly, to pull along the plot, that's what the exposition does, is it gives some breadcrumbs about what we're going to expect in the rising action, and it is dependent on the climax to build that turning point. Pull one of these subordinating conjunctions and write a full complex sentence using that subordinating conjunction. Now that I've completed the bubble chart, I'm going to go ahead and go over to my narrative draft one. As we covered a couple times before, your first sentence or your lead sentence is, or your topic sentence, comes directly from your Jamboard. Mine in this case is from the pink sticky note that's in my Jamboard for an example. I've always wanted to be an actor, although I was in sixth grade, and it was my first audition. I can remember the audience's reaction. The crowd had cast me in the part I wanted to play. The director had to agree. So I just copied and pasted that directly onto my draft. And now I'm going to model for you how to write your setting using that bubble map that we just completed. So I'm going to start off by naming it, claiming it, explaining it. So my first sentence in terms of naming it is stating exactly where the setting was in the form of a simple sentence. The audition was in the Flood Middle School Drama and Choir Room. And again, I'm just going to go around this in a clockwise motion. You can organize and structure your paragraph the exact same way. Moving up, where is a narrator? Inside of this space. Notice how I answered that question. Where are we, inside or outside? I had to tell my reader inside of this space. The clock showed 6:30 in the morning. It was the end of summer in August. Notice I'm just working my way around in the clockwise motion. I have all those details there. I'm going to move into my five senses next. The brightness. And I can pull some of those sentence starters from the Jamboard, despite it being long ago. I can remember the brightness of the room because of the fluorescent lights. Continuing on, the smell. Remember, this one was connected to my senses. So the smell of fresh wax on the floor. Now, as a tip, I can't just leave it this clause this way. I need to add more to it because it's a fragment if I just copy and paste it or copy and stick it into the sentence. So this sentence needs a verb. The smell of fresh wax on the floor reflected the risers in the room, in the back of the room. The smell of fresh wax on the floor reflected and its glow reflected the risers in the back of the room. Notice how I pulled a little bit from the rest of my graphic organizer. I pulled that artifact from over here. As the author, you get to choose where you organize your sentences and where you put your details. As long as all the ones that are included in this bubble map are in your paragraph, you're all set. There's no right or wrong. You're creating your own craft and your own art. This is the art of writing. It was noisy from the side conversations. So what was noisy? The room was noisy from side conversations. And I'm going to choose to make this into a compound sentence, but I'm going to add a different conjunction and I could still taste the sugary sweet of my Fruit Loops in my throat. And I'm going to include that detail intentionally because I'm going to connect it later in my rising action when I start to feel nervous. I'm actually going to go into a lot of detail this week when I write my characterization of this moment when I think about my stomach, the way that I felt in the anxiety. So I'm going to give that little breadcrumb to my reader at this point. And then I can just copy and paste this one directly from here because it's a full sentence. I remember the dryness in my mouth as I read this script. Now notice how I can pull in that second artifact very naturally. The scripts were marked and pages were highlighted for each role. And then lastly, again, I can copy and paste this sentence. So that wraps up our entire exposition. So notice, let's go ahead and review our draft. So we have our lead in right here, and then from there we have the setting. All of those details of the setting, and then we have a couple of breadcrumbs here for our reader in order to find that plot later on and hook back into it. So we need all of these parts in the exposition in order to create that consistency with the reader, but also to provide enough description so that they know where we are, time and place.